Hello viewers, welcome to Earthquake Disaster Movies. Here we have unbelievable but amazing natural phenomenon stuff for you. Suppose you dare to know about earthquake history, its impact on the lives of people and the economy of the world, so be there always. We have amazing stuff of your choice. Before moving ahead, subscribe our channel and press the bell icon for getting latest updates. The high number of earthquakes in Japan is related to its location along the Pacific Ring of Fire. This 40,000-kilometer-long chain is made up of at least 450 volcanoes. There are over 265 volcanoes classed as potentially active in Japan alone. Earthquakes are more likely as a result of these potentially active volcanoes. Today, I'll go over the specifics of the terrible earthquake in Japan that resulted in a tsunami in 2011. The 2011 Japan earthquake and tsunami, commonly known as the Great Sendai Earthquake or the Great Tsunami, was a devastating natural disaster that struck northeastern Japan on March 11, 2011. The event began with a massive earthquake off the northeastern shore of Honshu, Japan's main island, causing severe damage on land and triggering a series of large tsunami waves that damaged numerous coastal locations throughout the country, most notably in the Tohoku region, northeastern Honshu. A catastrophic nuclear catastrophe occurred due to the tsunami at a power facility near the coast. At 2:46 p.m., a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck. The epicenter was around 80 miles east of Sendai, Miyagi Prefecture, and the focal occurred at the depth of 18.6 miles below the surface of the western Pacific Ocean. The rupture of a portion of the subduction zone linked with the Japan Trench, which separates the Eurasian plate from the subducting Pacific plate, triggered the earthquake. A section of the subduction zone measured about 190 miles in length and 95 miles wide, lurched to the east-southeast and thrust upward about 33 feet. The March 11 earthquake was felt as far away as Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky in Russia, Kaohsiung in Taiwan, and Beijing in China. It was preceded by multiple foreshocks, including a magnitude 7.2 earthquake located around 25 miles from the main quake's epicenter. Hundreds of aftershocks, dozens of magnitude 6 or more, and 2 of magnitude 7 or greater followed the main quake in the days and weeks that followed. March 11, 2011, earthquake was the greatest to hit the region since record-keeping began in the late 1800s. It is regarded as one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded. The short horizontal and vertical thrusting of the Pacific Plate, gradually advancing beneath the Eurasian Plate near Japan, displaced the water above and created a series of exceedingly catastrophic tsunami waves. A 33-foot-high wave overwhelmed the coast and flooded areas of the city of Sendai, including its airport and surrounding farmland. According to some reports, one wave traveled 6 miles inland after flooding the Natori River, which connects Sendai to the city of Natori to the south. Tsunami waves wreaked havoc on the shores of Iwate Prefecture, directly north of Miyagi Prefecture, and Fukushima, Ibaraki, and Chiba prefectures, which run along the Pacific coast south of Miyagi. Tsunami warnings were issued throughout the Pacific Basin due to the earthquake. The tsunami sped away from the center at up to 500 miles per hour. It produced waves 11 to 12 feet high along the shores of Kauai and Hawaii in the Hawaiian Islands group, and 5-foot waves along the coast of Shemya in the Aleutian Islands chain. Initial reports of tsunami casualties put the death toll in the hundreds, with hundreds more still missing. The number of people in both groups climbed considerably in the days that followed as the scale of the devastation, particularly in coastal communities, became straightforward and rescue operations began. Within 2 weeks of the tragedy, the Japanese government's official death toll had surpassed 10,000. More than half that amount remained unaccounted for and assumed dead. It was clear that the earthquake and tsunami had been one of the deadliest natural disasters in Japanese history, rivaling the June 1896 big earthquake and tsunami off the coast of Iwate Prefecture. The official list of people confirmed dead or still missing grew to almost 28,500 as the hunt for victims continued. However, when more persons presumed to be missing were discovered to be alive, the figure began to fall. By the end of 2011, it had been lowered to approximately 19,300. The official count of individuals confirmed killed or reported missing from the accident was around 18,500. However, alternative estimates put the final toll at least 20,000. Fewer than 100 of those were from prefectures other than Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima. Miyagi Prefecture experienced the most casualties, with 10,800 people killed or missing and another 4,100 injured. The overwhelming majority of those murdered were drowning victims of the tsunami waves. Furthermore, more than half of the victims were 65 or older. Although the tsunami waves along Japan's Pacific coastline were responsible for nearly all deaths and much of the damage, the earthquake inflicted significant damage across a large area. A petrochemical plant in Sendai, a part of the city of Kesennuma in Miyagi Prefecture, northeast of Sendai, and an oil refinery in Ichihara in Chiba Prefecture near Tokyo were all notable fires. The temblor and aftershocks fully or partially damaged hundreds of residences in Fukushima, Ibaraki, and Chiba prefectures. Infrastructure was also severely damaged in eastern Tohoku, with roads and rail lines wrecked, electricity outages, and water and sewerage systems disrupted. A dam in Fukushima ruptured near the prefectural headquarters, Fukushima City. Northern Japan's nuclear crisis. Following the main shock and tsunami, the status of numerous nuclear power plants in the Tohoku region was a major source of concern. Following the tremor, the reactors at the 3 nuclear power facilities nearest to the epicenter were automatically shut down, as was the primary power to those units and their cooling systems. However, tsunami inundation destroyed backup generators at some of those reactors, most notably the Fukushima Daiichi No. 1 plant, which is located along the Pacific coast in northeastern Fukushima Prefecture, about 60 miles south of Sendai. With no electricity, the cooling systems in 3 reactors failed during the first few days of the crisis, and their cores overheated, resulting in partial meltdowns of the fuel rods. However, some plant workers blamed at least one partial meltdown on coolant pipe breaches caused by ground vibrations caused by the earthquake. Melted material fell to the bottom of the containment vessels in reactors 1 and 2 and burned large holes through the floor of each vessel, exposing the radioactive material in the cores to some extent. Explosions were caused by the buildup of pressurized hydrogen gas in the outer containment buildings enclosing reactors 1, 2, and 3, as well as a fire started by rising temperatures in spent fuel rods stored in reactor 4, resulting in significant levels of radiation being released from the facility in the days and weeks following the earthquake. Pumping salt water and boric acid into the damaged reactors was an attempt to cool and stabilize them. Because of worries about potential radiation exposure, Japanese officials imposed an 18-mile no-fly zone around the facility, and a 12.5-mile radius around the plant was evacuated. The evacuation zone was eventually expanded to a no-fly zone of 18 miles, within which residents were ordered to leave or remain indoors. The discovery of elevated radiation levels in some local food and water supplies prompted regulators in Japan and elsewhere to issue health warnings regarding their consumption. At the end of March, it was revealed that seawater near the Daiichi facility had been contaminated with high levels of radioactive iodine-131. The pollution resulted from the radioactive exposure of pumped-in seawater inside the plant. This water then escaped into the ocean through breaks in water-filled trenches and tunnels connecting the facility and the ocean. In mid-April, Japanese nuclear regulators raised the severity level of the nuclear emergency at the Fukushima Daiichi facility from 5 to 7, the highest level on the International Atomic Energy Agency scale, putting the Fukushima accident in the same category as the 1986 Chernobyl disaster in the Soviet Union. The evacuation zone's radiation levels remained high, and it was anticipated that the area would be uninhabitable for decades. However, some months after the accident, government officials stated that radiation levels in 5 villages slightly beyond the original 12.5-mile evacuation zone had dropped sufficiently to enable inhabitants to return home. Although some individuals returned, others stayed away, fearful of the number of radioactive contaminants still present in the soil. Several attempts were made in certain regions to remove polluted soil. After completing the cool shutdown of its reactors, Japanese Prime Minister Noda Yoshihiko declared the Fukushima Daiichi facility stable in December 2011. Numerous leaks occurred at the facility where tainted reactor cooling water was stored in the years following the disaster. In August 2013, a large leak occurred severe enough for Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority to categorize it as a Level 3 nuclear incident. In the hours following the earthquake, Japanese Prime Minister Kan Naoto hastened to establish an emergency command center in Tokyo. A huge number of rescue personnel and around 100,000 members of the Japanese Self-Defense Force were quickly recruited to deal with the disaster. In 2011, the Kan and Noda administration submitted and were approved by the legislature of 3 disaster-related supplemental budgets. the third and largest, approved in November, contributed over $155 billion, which was intended for rehabilitation in devastated areas. In addition, the government formed a cabinet-level reconstruction agency in February 2012 to coordinate rebuilding operations in the Tohoku region. The agency was supposed to remain in existence for 10 years, enough time to rehabilitate the region. The agency announced in early 2015 that nearly all of the disaster debris had been cleared. I hope you enjoyed the video about 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Do subscribe to our channel, put your remarks about this superb video in the comment section, and never forget to press the bell icon for upcoming exciting videos.